Connie, I've known for several years now. She was the co-coordinator of the state Green Party and has done tremendous work and has been on the forefront of fighting to keep us going, but also social change in Columbus, where there's been a lot of struggles, as there has been here in Dayton, over Black Lives Matter, over what's going on with police brutality, but also across the board, the same kind of issues that we're facing here in Dayton. And so I really appreciate she came forward and decided to be our standard bearer, and I think is going to run a great campaign and is very thoughtful and organized about it. So welcome to Dayton.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm very happy to be here. And how's everybody doing today? Good. Good. Thanks for making it out here today. So in the past year, I have seen that the Green Party is really growing a lot. So we have new county chapters popping up all over the state in Lorain, Ohio, and many other places. We have new caucuses that have formed. So there's a youth caucus, a black caucus. Our women's caucus is going to be meeting in the coming months. So that will, you should maybe look for a message from Logan about the Women's Caucus. And we'll also be having an Ohio Green Party meeting coming up April 7th or 8th. So I think that will be in Columbus, and you guys are invited to come. So I would just like to tell you a little bit about myself. A lot of you, well, I don't know if anybody really knows much about me, but I have been involved with the Green Party since 2008. I started working with Bob Fitrakis right after I got out of law school and helping him with election law. So I started right away working on election law with Bob and helped write the complaint that got Cynthia McKinney on the ballot for president that year. And I also did a lot of election protection activities. So right from the beginning, we were working to protect the vote, make sure that people got to vote in Columbus. And since there were a lot of election irregularities in the two presidential elections before that, in 2000 and 2004, it was of the utmost importance that we protect the election in 2008. So I believe that we did that and made a huge impact on protecting the vote, making sure that students, African Americans got to vote, and we also gained our party status at that time. So that was a lot of fun, and that was when I started to get involved with the Green Party. So since then, I've been secretary of the Ohio Green Party. I've been chair of the Ohio Green Party. And last year, we saw a lot of people coming into the party, particularly after the Bernie Sanders influx of people. So we got a lot of people from there. And so now we see a lot of those people starting to take leadership roles. A lot of them will have to wait until our primary to become an official Green, but we have a lot of people doing that. And so we have just about enough signatures now to get on the ballot, and we're gonna turn those in next week. And then our push will be to get people to vote Green in the primaries. So that's kind of what we're working on with the party. We need people to vote Green in the primary so you can become an official Green Party member if you're not, and get new members. So just about myself, too. I'm mostly from Ohio. I was born in Southern Illinois, grew up with a young, poor teenage mom, and then we came to Columbus. We basically left poverty in Southern Illinois and came, my mom was still very young, to Upper Arlington in Columbus, which is a pretty nice suburb where my grandmother lived. So throughout my educational background, a lot of times it seems like I've been the poor kid in the rich neighborhood, but that's given me a lot of opportunity and a lot of perspective on economic issues, a lot of compassion for everybody, and in my legal career, I really strive to help low-income and poor people. So my job mostly now is a criminal defense attorney and a guardian ad litem in juvenile cases and abuse and neglect cases, working with children's services a lot of times. A lot of that has been focused on working on issues of poverty, social justice, okay? So I also represent activists. I got involved in activism in college with a feminist group. I started doing Take Back the Night and Committee for Justice in Palestine, and really got involved in some activism. And then later in my legal career, I have still taken that with me, and now I represent activists. So a lot of activists who get arrested for civil disobedience. Some of my clients have been Occupy Columbus back in that time. I've represented Madeline Fitch, who was arrested for protesting a fracking well. So there was an injection site that she was protesting. And now most recently, a lot of anti-racist surge is standing up for racial justice. There was a young man who was arrested with that, protesting police brutality. Now we have the Black Pride 4. They were African-American activists arrested at the Pride Parade. So I do a lot of that kind of in the trenches work on grassroots issues. We're working on the issue of police brutality a lot in Columbus. We have one of the highest rates of police shootings in the country. And I had the unfortunate experience about a week and a half ago that I witnessed a police shooting at juvenile court in the Franklin County Court. So that it's a little hard to talk about, but I was the only person who caught that on video. I got the aftermath of the shooting basically on my phone. So that has been in the news. So it's just, that is interesting that, I'm already sort of an activist on that issue, and it's just hitting closer to home. So I'm very happy to be running as a Green, and is anybody a Green Party member here? Are you guys Green Party members? Okay, so you're new to the Green Party, or you?
Counts as a member.
Okay, so
Fellow travelers.
I haven't been able to vote in a primary,
Okay.
but I don't know, can you ask for a green
Yes,
ballot
you
if there's
can.
nobody in the area that's running?
Yes,
in the primary?
you can become a Green Party member by pulling the Green primary in May.
Okay.
And we definitely would love you to do that. So definitely do that. And everybody's here today, so thank you for being here. And I think that, to me, organizing with the third largest political party in the state gives me an opportunity to participate in our democratic process in a way that I probably wouldn't get to if I was a Democrat or Republican or just not involved at all. I've been able to be a delegate to, at the national conference, which I don't know how hard. I mean, maybe it's not that hard to do, but I just thought that was really cool. I feel like I've gotten a lot of opportunities. I certainly wouldn't be running for governor, I guess, if I was running as a Democrat or whatever. But it's good to provide people with choices and the ability to run, and the ability to know that the candidate is running because they want to run or because people support them, not just because they're the one with all the money or they're the one who is willing to, sometimes sell out the interests of the people they're representing to corporations so that they can get the money to run. So that that's not going to happen with Green Party candidates. We're running a grassroots campaign that is people-powered. And part of the reason that we do that is because we care about the people, we care about people's rights and quality of life, and we're not going to sell them out to corporations. So the other great thing about being a Green is that besides all that, we have great values. We have our 10 key values that are what really hold the party together. And this is an open process. This is a political party that anybody can join. And so what's really important is that when people are coming to the party, they know that they're green if they agree with the values. So our 10 key values are grassroots democracy, social justice and equal opportunity, ecological wisdom, nonviolence, and that's an important one in these days, I think, decentralization, community-based economics, feminism, respect for diversity, personal and global responsibility, and future focus and sustainability. So you see a lot of our environmental values coming through on that, our social justice and people-centered values, our views about democracy and the economy. I think keeping the economy local is something that's important, and that's something that I want to do as governor, is keep our money in Ohio. We have a lot of out-of-state corporations that are getting tax abatements and basically taking money away from our schools, our social programs. We're giving away a lot of money to big corporations that could be staying in the state. And we want to make sure that we're cultivating a strong local economy. And I know that there are a lot of tensions. I've heard some politicians blatantly say it's environment or the workers. And I really think that they're creating a false dichotomy there, a false choice. We can have an economy that is sustainable and respectful to people and the environment. And those things are not necessarily in conflict. We have to be smart about how we do it. We have to look at sustainability, but we can have a strong local economy where we support each other and have a clean environment. I think that there are a lot of opportunities for solar manufacturing, wind farms, things that can help farmers and help the people. So we would, there's a lot there. And then also, as far as like farming, we want to legalize industrial hemp as well as cannabis for other purposes, so recreational and medical use. But the hemp farming is a great renewable resource and something that will help farmers. So there's really no reason that substance shouldn't be legalized or decriminalized, and I think there's a growing consensus in that area. In my work as a criminal attorney too, just kind of, I need like a second. I'm just trying to keep talking, and then we'll take a break. Yeah.
We're all friends, it's okay. Truly we are.
So I am a criminal defense attorney, and so one thing that I want to just mention is something that I feel is really impacting our state is some of these criminal issues. So issues of over-criminalization and incarceration. The United States has one of the highest populations per capita of incarcerated people. For the land of the free,
I think we're number one.
yeah, I think we're probably number one. So this is supposed to be the land of the free. And we have a constitution that's supposed to protect us and protect our rights as people. So I think that, one important part of my job is protecting the Constitution and upholding our rights under the Bill of Rights. And I also just look around and see how many what social problems are being created by not supporting the people, forcing people to live in poverty, and then criminalizing everything. So I think that criminalization and living in an incarceration state is impacting our economy because it rules people out from having employment. So their whole family is affected if we have somebody who's precluded from getting employment. It's even not very business friendly to have workers who are not able to work because they've been incarcerated or have a criminal record. So I think that we really need to take a look at some of the discriminatory laws that we have. There's a lot of unequal enforcement in the drug war. So some statistics that I've heard are that white and black people use marijuana at the same rates, but you're more likely to be arrested if you're black. So with something like marijuana, it is criminalized, and there's discriminatory enforcement, and that's something that is affecting our economy and our well-being in the state of Ohio. So one thing that we want to do is a lot of our prisons are privatized. We want to stop privatized prisons. Punishment should not be a business. When you're running a business, your obligation is to your stockholders to make the most money. So we see these for-profit prisons lobbying to keep certain things illegal, to keep marijuana criminalized. And they have a lobby because they don't make a profit unless their beds are filled. They're making that profit at the expense of Ohioans. So incarceration, I think, is something that we need to take a good look at and really work on decreasing our incarcerated population. We need to work on rehabilitation, make sure that people have a good education so that they're not drawn into a criminal lifestyle or poverty. We need to really empower kids, make sure that they're coming out with the tools that they need. Also, yeah.
Are you familiar with the new criminal justice reform ballot initiative? I think it was officially launched yesterday in Columbus by the Ohio Organizing Collaborative.
I don't know the specifics of that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And I signed it, but I don't know the specifics either.
I'm not sure about that. So just another issue that I want to talk about that's pretty related to that is the police violence. And that's something that I think a lot of us can say, okay, we do have some racialized problems. Black people are more likely to have, an issue, I think, with police brutality. But the truth is, this is something that impacts all of us. This affects all of us when our police are not trained in a way to de-escalate things nonviolently. So as a Green and a humanitarian, I want to promote nonviolence. And I want our government to observe that also, especially as how they're dealing with the people. They are supposed to protect and serve us. And what we find is that instead of helping, our system right now is broken. Our policing system is broken. And instead of that, they're getting the message in their training that our cities are war zones and that they need to be prepared for war. They're getting equipment left over from the military, that's coming into our local police departments. So unfortunately, it seems that they're preparing for combat against Americans, against Ohioans. And why? I really think that it's the message that they're receiving in their training, partly sometimes from the federal level. That's where a lot of their training is coming from. They're trained to shoot at the body mass until the threat is eliminated if they're scared for their lives. So police need to be equipped with less lethal tools to use. I think that if given the choice, a lot of police officers would not want to kill someone if they had a less lethal way to deal with them. They need to be trained in nonviolent communication and de-escalation. A lot of situations can be de-escalated, and you can prevent a tragedy from happening by using nonviolent de-escalation, and also look at hostage negotiation tactics where the goal is to prevent the loss of life. I think that is extremely important. That's maybe a good time to transition. My running mate, Brett Joseph, I want to tell you guys a little bit about him. He's amazing. He has a very strong environmental background. He's a professor and coordinator, and he does sustainable agriculture. So he's very knowledgeable about environmental issues, about farming, and he's on that side. He also has a strong social justice background and is an attorney also. He has a general practice. So we're on the same page with a lot of these issues, but I tend to focus more on kind of some of the government and, you know, because my background is criminal defense and dealing with people who are, you know, in the children's services, kind of, you know, social services type atmosphere. And then he's very focused on, you know, some of the energy issues, the farming issues, a lot of the environmental issues, which are also things that I care about quite a lot. I've done community gardening and a lot of like community projects. So I think that my running mate and I really complement each other. He is in his early 50s, has a couple college-age daughters, and he is a great researcher. So anytime I have a question about policy or something like that, he helps me research those issues. He's a great running mate. He's been a big help. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Brett, and I also have a really great team of people that I'm working with. And I don't know, that's about all I have to just like talk on and on about, and we can kind of open up the conversation. I'd really like to hear, I guess, just, you know, for you to tell me about things that are important to you. What do you think are the most important issues in Dayton area or in this part of the state? I'd like to take that back with me so that I can make sure to represent those views.
When you're knocking door to door, talking about the Green Party and asking for support, and people tell you, well, you know, the Green Party's a bunch of left-wing radicals, and I wouldn't vote for them. How do you respond to that?
I don't usually get that particular feedback. Usually people don't really know much about the Green Party at all. So it's much more common to have people say, Green Party, what's that? So I have the chance to really, right now, kind of remake the Green Party in some ways. And I know that we have, you know, yes, with some people we have a kind of a reputation, a weird reputation or something.
Yeah.
But I think that that's something that we have the opportunity to kind of, you know, I'm kind of making this campaign and making the Green Party my own based on my ideals and things that I really share in common with the Green Party.
Yeah.
I think usually people don't know that we're left-wing radicals necessarily.
Maybe.
So, what is the difference between the Green Party really and the new progressives that are out there?
So I'm not sure exactly which progressives you're talking
The Democratic
about.
progressives. Yeah.
Democratic
Yeah.
progressives. So yeah, I mean, I would say that progressives, a lot of times, you know, sometimes they're Democrats, sometimes they're kind of nonpartisan or independent. Some of them kind of support the Green Party or they're not sure. So I think that a big difference between the progressives who are kind of going the way of the Democratic Party versus Greens, a lot of it is strategy. I would say that Greens are not afraid to really stick by their principles, and we're not taking money from the Democratic Party or from corporations. So that's a huge difference. I know.
I have a couple of friends running that are progressives that are running as Democrats.
Yeah.
And you're right, it is a strategy. They're not taking corporate money. I don't have a problem with them taking the Democrats' money if they're going to do the right thing with it. You know, if it's going to get them a seat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then eventually get us a voice. So I mean, I don't see that much of a difference between what the Greens believe and what the Democratic progressives believe.
I think there's certainly a lot of overlap there, absolutely, and I think it really depends a lot on the individual. I do think that there's value in having a multi-party system because I don't think two parties can really represent everybody. I think that right now the two parties kind of have the system on lockdown, and that we have the right to start other political parties. If we don't feel that we're being represented by the Democrats or the Republicans for whatever reason, we can start our own party. And I think that's an important right that the people have. And I think that it's important to have all of our voices heard in the political dialogue. So when we're making decisions together in our democracy, whose voices are going to get heard? Do we really want it to only be, two types of people from the richest, parties? I think that there's a real value in having that diversity. So, we've all been Americans here now for the past, couple hundred years. We've gone through and had this common history, the civil rights movement, rock and roll, jazz. There are so many things that we get that American culture gets from African Americans that I think that we can acknowledge and appreciate and love, and that we need to, think about our shared and common history that we have, and then also look at ways that we can fix these problems. That there are systematic and societal issues, the schools, the police, economics, food, all of that kind of fits together, and we need to find ways to really support everybody in our society and make sure that everybody's going to be okay, because that really elevates everybody. So as far as schools, I think that the movement to privatize schools has really taken away a lot from our schools. So instead of having publicly funded schools that were part of a public trust, we have schools being run for profit, privatized. A lot of the charter schools, look at ECOT, how huge of a failure that's been. And I've worked with a lot of children who have truancy charges because they couldn't figure out how to log into ECOT. So seeing both sides of that, ECOT is getting in trouble, my kids are getting into trouble, and that money, a lot of it's leaving our state, or it's going into the pockets of private investors. It's definitely leaving the schools. You see the teachers having to pay for their own school supplies because the schools are so badly funded. So we really need to get back to funding our classrooms, funding our schools, not letting that money leave and go into people's, like a couple, business owners' pockets. So that's money that's being taken away from the kids, from the students.
Speaking of the funding,
Funding.
how does the Green Party address how we fund public education in the state of Ohio? What is the approach that you feel should be taken rather than community property tax based? Or
The school funding model has been found unconstitutional many times, and that's never been fixed. And that is something that we're looking at to try to move to a constitutional school funding model. And I think that one thing that we want to do is kind of stop the bleeding in our school funding with the tax abatements that a lot of businesses are getting, because that is money that's taken away from the schools. We want to make sure local governments are adequately funded. And that's something that has been brought up to me by some people who are living in smaller towns, is their local governments are not funded. So that's something that we would strive to improve, make sure that there's local government funding.